e-learning coordinator here in FPM. On behalf of my Dean and TDs of the faculty, would like to welcome you all to this space for us to share and discuss ideas. Before we begin, let's start with reciting Surah Al-Fatihah. Amin, Amin, Ya Rabbal Alamin. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, joining us today is a person with amazing credibility and responsible for our vast enhancement in academic matters. She, I would like to say, as a visionary woman that has set high standard in development in the field of instructional design and technology. She also have a remarkable and outstanding achievement with her recent awards in EdTech Leadership in Asia for Tertiary Education 2009 in Singapore. Today, she will be sharing her insights on designing for responsive and responsible learning. Let's welcome Professor Dr. Hajah Noraziah Haji Alias, Director of Academic Development, UiTM. All yours, Prof.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mazwani. Yeah. Can you hear me? Sound check, please. Boleh dengar ke?
Boleh, Prof.
Okay, all right. Let me just share my window first. All right. Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good morning to everyone. Thank you for being online. Thank you to the organizers for having me and saying all those nice things about me. But basically, I'm just someone from the Office of the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic and International. And we've been doing this, managing, supporting, evaluating ODL for the past 5 or 6 months. So what we're going to do is, today I was given the task to talk about instructional design. So I'm thinking maybe it's not so much about instructional design, but we have to place the responsibility on the learners themselves. So we are going to talk more about design. Right. So what we're gonna do is, right. This is basically agenda for the next 1 hour or so. I always start with where we are, and we always need to evaluate. Kita kena muhasabah. We have to look at what works, and then only we move forward and plan for the next semester. So I must commend Faculty of Information Management for doing this webinar on learning on design, because you are thinking that next semester will come and it's again an ODL semester and you want to do things better. I'm sure that's the reason, right? But as we go on through for the 1 hour or so, it is really about sharing my experience. Okay, so let's see where we are. Actually, I've been involved in ODL. ODL for the past 21 years, because I started with FLP with Prof. Dr. Zarina Abdullah. I think many pengajian maklumat lecturers are still familiar with that name, right? So I started with her at FLP. I was an ODL learner. I mean, I was a learner with University of Southern Queensland. I got a certificate, postgraduate certificate in open and distance learning from University of Southern Queensland because of what Prof. Zarina worked on. You know, I mean, we the two of us got it. And it has been almost 20 years doing this. We've been doing e-learning. We got iLearn. We do blended learning, and we're still doing blended learning. We are doing MOOC. We did MOOC. We started MOOC in 2014. We're still doing it. And we have all the IR 4.0, SDG, whatever, in our curriculum. In 2018, we started Wisdom Wednesday. We got multidiscipline and 4 IR elective courses, we call it. We got smart classroom. We got maker space, learning space. All these were going on, are still going on in UITM. In 2019, we launched Education 5.0. We have the flexible delivery policy. We are still doing Week Without Walls, not now. I mean, we did Week Without Walls. It's still on. That if we come to face later. When we launched our open learning platform U Future in 2019, and in 2020, COVID came, right? 20 years we were moving, and we were moving very, how do I say, leisurely. But when COVID came, we have to move ourselves really fast, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through some of this, where we are now, and some of you may have followed my sessions before, and if you see some of these things that's familiar, what macam apa ni, first time tengok lah ya. Because there are a lot of things that we've been doing for the past 6 months or so. So we tend to put things together, and you might have seen it before. Okay, so this is familiar to you, but what I want to highlight is this one. Learning from different resources. This is one of the things that we notice students are doing, which is good, right? You know about the rest. Somehow they have become independent. They have become resilient due to ODL. Our students are. And this is another one. They get to learn from others from different institutions. You see, I was told some students were learning with students from UKM, from UM the last semester. So we are going to look at the positive part of things about elements about ODL. But of course, we have to look at what we've done and learn from some of it as well. Maybe not so positive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to somehow question you, all those challenges that you've gone through. Was April to July believable? Was it basically magical? Magical ke? Tak tahu lah ya. But we were screaming at first, but we managed. Is there still room for improvement? In fact, ada tak opportunity that we could have done something, but we missed it? But don't worry, we have another semester that we can do this. So what we did at my office is to manage the whole thing, and we did a lot of data collecting. So from the early part, readiness of the students, until the last one, we collected data on student results. So this is one that I want to share. We've got a survey from all students from all campuses. 36,000, they wanted to ask to come in and give their input, but we stopped the survey. 773 were from the Faculty of Information Management. I know some of you here are not from the Faculty of Information Management, but I'm going to zoom into Faculty of Information Management. Don't worry about it, because the data actually is quite common for the findings, basically are quite common for all. All right. So this is what we asked them. What was your ODL experience? So we asked, the first question we asked was this. So the students get to choose their emoticon. So these numbers up here are basically, how shall I say, for the university. This is the average for UITM. The numbers down here are that of Faculty of Information Management. So look at that. You are way above average of the university average. See, 5.1% of IM students actually love ODL. Wow, that's good. 22.6% ready for it, and going for it. 35.3, okay, happy but a little bit anxious. And here we have this neutral person, and of course we have the 3 here. We are quite happy with this, but being at the academic office, we look at this as well, right? This is very important. The 9.7% who are these people and what happened to them, right? So some of the things that students said was about internet connection. Sangat susah dapat internet connection. Saya bergantung pada mobile hotspot. Tempat saya line slow sangat. Kadang-kadang tak ada line, akan terganggu. You know all these things. It happened to our students. And some were saying, I do not understand certain topic that I learned through ODL. I can't see my lecturer in order to check my draft or assignment. I didn't have the opportunity to redo or improve my assignment. So they were saying all these things. But this was back in May, right? So things have kind of changed a bit, and students actually did better. So I'm going to show some question. Were you given enough information? Look at that. Very good. The faculty gave enough information to the students. Some of the subjects give the best explanation, but there are also subjects just doing exercise without explanation. Of course, we cannot expect everybody to be perfect. I know some of the lecturers were also struggling, so we understand that. But basically, students will be given enough information about assessment, right? And they have enough time to complete their learning task. But now this one has become a little bit bigger. So students neither agree or disagree, because for some courses they were okay, but some courses they were not. So students said it's okay for exercises every day for every subject, but when there are too many exercises and assignments, they can cope, right? Okay. Access to resources, good. Look at that. They got lots of access to resources, but still some of them were giving neither agree or disagree, because they were really thinking of resources being the textbook. So IM should do better, of course, because you know it's not just textbook. There are lots of resources online, and you just need to curate all these resources content. When we asked them about collaboration and cooperation among the peers, students were saying it has now the yellow bar is bigger. This is something that we kind of miss, because we forgot, we thought students can collaborate very well, but actually they were having problem because the friends were away, and some friends actually just did not answer the WhatsApp and so on. So look at like this one. This is one of your student. I have a teammate who lives far away in Kampung area. Her internet connection is not good. Sometimes I can't reach her for a few days. She also has trouble joining Google Meet. In addition to that, she's a passive teammate. However, if we can reach and give her task to complete, she can complete it even if it's not correct. But at least she tried. Very positive student. But so lecturers, when you give group work, you have to think, you have to facilitate, right, to make sure that students can really collaborate and cooperate. Okay, the bar is now longer here, which means that you give a lot of feedback. Even though some students said some of the lecturers just give, what was that? Give me a blue tick. I was actually wondering apa blue tick ni. Oh, rupanya WhatsApp punya tu, you saying that you read it but you didn't say anything, right? Anyway, home environment, this is a real concern. We kind of forgot about this as well at the beginning, because our students, not all of them have, parents, mothers cooking for them, or have maids at home and so on, or having their own bedroom. So like this one of your students said, my sister and I share the same bedroom. The lamp is turned off early because she need to sleep early because of her morning shift. So I have to do my task assignment in the dark. I cannot do it in the living room because one of my family members sleep there. But it's okay. See, one thing about IM student, they always have this statement. It's okay. You have very positive students actually. When the sun is up, I can do my task and assignment. Right? So because of this, we would like to bring some of these students back. Okay, in terms of participation, you did well. Got a lot of students to participate, above 90%. In terms of ODL experience score overall, yours is about 2.56, I think. But look at that, none of the faculties were above 3. So we were questioning, were we doing things right? Remember, again, that was in May. So we look at the whole thing, and we see these are what will happen. Look at that, non-conducive learning environment, number of deadlines, task assignment. So we have to think, design, internet connectivity, platforms and tools, isolation, fear, great anxiety. Now I don't think they have great anxiety anymore because they did very well last semester. Lack ODL skills among students and lecturers, and reaching out. So these we collected the comments. We did a word cloud. See, these are the things that the students were saying. Assignment, internet connection is a big one. Problem with laptop, study subject, and so on. Okay. But the interesting things is one of your students said this. Please do full class online and exam starting this and next semester. As with the current situation that we know, COVID-19 has taken our freedom to go anywhere. If all students are going to be to the class, everyone is at risk to get infected with COVID-19. So if there even one student with no discipline and lack of common sense, everyone will get infected. Your student said that, right? Okay. So you have kind of quite a mature student in IM. So the question is, can we do better? Of course, we can do better. So what we did was we surveyed at the end, at the end of in September, at the end of the semester, we surveyed the Dean's List students. We asked them, what were the contributing factors leading to their success? So the factor number one is lecturers. And basically almost 40K students said lecturers. So you should belanja yourself today because you did well last semester, inshallah. Number two, peers. So they kind of help each other even though it's difficult for them to work on tasks. So one student was saying they stayed up after midnight just to have a study group online. And then self-effort. They work very hard because they have to work hard. They have to be independent. So that's factor number 3. Factor number 4, the family support them. These are Dean's List students. Yeah? And factor number 5, the students were saying the assessments were manageable, which is good. That means most of us revise our assessment. And factor number 6, resources. They got a lot of sources for content and so on. So the thing is, the least contributing factor was assessments were easy to score. So I really hope this is also true for IM. That means you were not giving them the leeway, kan? But no, assessment still assessment. So the students say it's not easy to score, but they were manageable. Maybe you revise the number and so on. So these are basically from IM. Okay. So what we did was we also have this ODL award nomination, and we ask students to nominate their lecturers. So they have this statement that they give about the lecturers. So one of your students said, pencara saya harus diberi anugerah ini kerana beliau sering bertanyakan kondisi pelajar di samping, memberi kata-kata semangat. So look at the things that I have underlined. Giving students hope. They see you having passion in teaching. Want her students to understand and learn. Memahami dan bertimbang rasa. Beliau comfort saya bila saya mengadu. Bertolak ansur. And this one, she prepared outlines and uploaded videos weekly. Google form for feedback and question which she explains privately through email and so on. So lecturers, the success factors from lecturers included your dedication, your empathy, the structure that you gave them, because ODL at the start of it was really a chaotic situation, right? So chaos, everybody screaming, everybody tak tahu apa nak buat. So students appreciate that structure and of course the motivation, right? So now at the end of, shall I say in October, before we go to the next semester, I'm sure you have understood your role. We gave you one instrument, we call it TESA ODL. We ask you to rate yourself. This is IM score. average score is 84, meaning most of you already have very good, shall I say, skills in ODL. And I hope you understand that you have multiple roles. The design, you are a designer, you are the curator, you develop all those videos that you have developed. Pukul 2 pagi, tape recording lagi. You facilitate, you lecture as well, you guide, you motivate, and you evaluate. Oh, banyak kerja. Okay, I can add some more, but that's the thing that what you are doing now. A lot of things on your shoulder, but I do believe many people have done well. So now we talk about October and beyond, right? Do we want to go back to what we were doing before? I don't think you want to go back to what you were doing before, because you understand a lot of positive things coming out from this experience. So we want to go to this, shall I say, culture of learning agility. We want to be agile. We want to be flexible. We want to be collaborative, and we want lecturers and students to be fast to respond. So that's why the title, I changed it to responsive and responsible. We talk about adab and amanah in education 5.0. So when we talk about learning agility, we want the students to be responsible. Kita pening fikir whether they copy lah, they plagiarize lah, whatever. But we need to inculcate this responsibility in them. They are the producers of their own education. They are responsible for what they learn. If they copy, they get grade for copying, right? We want them to understand that. We want them to regulate their learning. They have to be more active. They don't just wait for you sending your notes or going online. They should be seeking information, and they have to start thinking on their own. That's what we want to do. And I want to quote Steiner and Posh here, who use the term mutual self-responsible learning. So they are responsible, and at the same time, it's a mutual thing that we understand between the lecturer and also the student. So when it comes to responsive, kita tak nak students yang blur. I don't know that. Tak tahulah. No, don't. We want them to be aware, mindful, test. When is the test? When is the assignment? What did the lecturer post? What were we discussing? And they have to act accordingly and appropriately. And with all the resources, they must be very resourceful. So this culture perlu ada clear outcome. And we push for peer learning, team, kan, ubiquitous learning, and we insert academic honesty through this responsible and responsive learning. So this is what we have in Education 5.0 UITM. If I hope you have seen, you know what Education 5.0 is, but we go for two things, adab and amanah. Amanah, dua prong, dua benda. Satu is the tanggungjawab, and satu is basically the trustworthiness. Amanah, to learn, to seek and explore knowledge. Tell that students have to understand that. Amanah, to go for lifelong and life-wide learning. This is what you are doing. The lecturers still learning in October, even though you have gone through the 5 months. You know a lot of the stuff. You need to propagate knowledge. You have to give them knowledge. You have to educate. That's the thing. And amanah also about study ethic, about optimizing time, about resources, performing duties well, and avoiding misconduct. So ini framework dia. Dari segi framework adab, we want student on lecturers to have adab. Means the good word to use is menyantuni. Knowing one's proper place in relation to Allah, manusia, and all the environment, living and non-living things. So in your course, in your teaching, in your instruction, you must try to link this, link their adab with manusia, adab with the creator, adab with living things and non-living things as well. That should go into the lesson. And also when they come to class, they understand courtesy, they understand respect, and we understand diversity. So if the students respect you, dia tak copy. because they tahu how work you hard. They were saying so passionate. They will not do it because if they have that adab, they will not do it. Okay, so this is basically what we want to push from the academic office, adab, amanah, responsive and responsible learning. So, macam mana nak design? Let me just show you one example. This is not designed yet. So this is one student from my class who is very responsive. She did very well. One of the tasks that I had her, the students did was to go through a MOOC, because I teach technology and these are teachers. They need to understand how what MOOC learning through using a MOOC is. So I use Barbara Oakley's MOOC. This lady, she had 2 million people enrolling in her MOOC. So most of the students finished the task. 1 week of MOOC learning with Barbara Oakley. But Noraziah, my student, she's more responsive. She finished the whole MOOC. She got a certificate from Coursera, which is basically from the University of California, San Diego. Okay, and this goes to her assessment, of course, lah. In her e-portfolio, she talked about how she learned using the MOOC. In September, she sent me this. Prof, look at this. After that MOOC with Barbara Oakley, she enrolled in another MOOC with the University of Industrial de Santander, okay, where she learned Spanish. So now she has a certificate in Spanish. So she can speak basic Spanish. This is what we want the students to be, responsive. You give them task options that interest them. They got outcome coming from that task. Then they self-direct themselves and they go beyond. So if we can do this, then most of our job is done and they can go out into the world being someone who is more responsible and more independent. Okay, so want to talk about design. Shall we, with that preamble for about 15 minutes, berapa lama juga can we say that we should shift from just giving instruction, which is instructional design, other instructional design, of course, but the bulk of it is designing the learning. We move from designing instruction to designing learning experience. We move from a single learning approach, lecture, masuk kelas, PowerPoint, to maybe a more, what we call an eclectic design. So our design cannot be very rigid, okay? Flexible. Sometimes, like myself, after 3 weeks, I notice certain things about the students. I think they are more interested or more positive about certain approach. So I changed my approach. So that's what I mean by flexible design. Okay, maybe some of you have seen this. Why is waste useful? Right? Semua orang tahu waste, right? So, it lets you know your position, right? Okay, betul. Semua orang tahu. Gets you where you want to go. Give you step-by-step instruction. This is instructional design. Gets you there in the shortest time, maybe not. Sometimes gives you a route that avoids toll, right? Gets you there. Gets you there in the shortest time and shortest route. Maybe not. Maybe they gives you a longer another route. Recalculates when you make a wrong turn. Yes. Okay. Alerts on upcoming hazard. Sometimes you also tahu, you also know that ada traffic police upcoming, and then just is because it combines all visual and also audio, and it has a massive user database. Meaning when you open your Waze, you can actually message a Wazer who's in front and ask him or whatever, right? So why do I talk about waste? Because the number one thing that we should know is that we lecturers are the waste for our students. We are the ones who let them know where they are, what they don't know, where they want to go. Sometimes we give them step-to-step instruction, but not necessarily give them the shortest time, the shortest route. We give feedback when they do something wrong, and we do this a lot, right? So we are the waste. So if you think of that, then you can start thinking about whatever instruction and things that you give to the student. Okay. We all have seen this kan? Tengok yang sebelah ni. So, dia punya instruction is warnakan 3 ekor ikan. Is the student wrong? No, the student is not wrong. Memang dia warnakan 3 ekor ikan. Right. Look at this one. Write these words in alphabetical order. Dia buat alphabetical order lah. T-A-K-E buat A-E-K-T. Why do I show you this? There's nothing wrong with the instruction, but the instruction has been misinterpreted. So imagine something like this when you think it is so clear, it does not. I mean, when the students get it, they can interpret it so differently. So imagine a lot of things that you are giving them, a lot of interpretation as well. So that's why we need to talk about design. So we design our curriculum, we need to design our course, we need to design some instruction, but basically we want lecturers to go beyond and do design learning and design the learning experience. Okay, so we got only about 45 minutes or so. I cannot. In fact, instructional design or learning design we do in 2 days, but it's okay. So the limit of this session is that I'm going to talk about the basic thing. So you should go and read further models of learning design, motivation and engagement in learning design, activity and task-based learning design, tools, all the technology and tools and that will support learning. And of course, Puan Nadia in the next session will talk about assessment. So bear in mind, this is very basic, but I hope it will give some idea about design. Okay, so the ways just now, yeah. We also need to understand the W of design lah. The husband of design ni will have to be another bengkel and so on. Right? I mean, a more elaborate workshop if you want to know everything. Okay. Why do we design? We all need to have a design mindset. Basically, we have to understand what is the problem or the concern, and we have to have this empathy about that problem, and we have to do something better. Okay. So if we say why is there a need to design learning? Look at this is basically our student. Kelam kabut dia dengan 7 courses or 8 courses learning. So we really need to help them. Remember, we are the ways, right? So what do? We do program design, course design, section that I was saying just now. And who design? Basically, all of us will have to do some form of designing. So the first thing is we want to talk about designing the semester. We got to have the full snapshot of the semester, and we really need to collaborate among us and then put in place and operationalize all these things. So let's take a look at this. Semester 1 next semester, right? It's going to be a 14-week semester. It's not going to be a 22-week anymore. Remember last semester it was like 22 week, 14 week. So things will have to be really in place and clear. No more, not much. I mean, we can still try, cuba-cuba, but less cuba now. We need to operationalize. So we go for ODL, which means not only online, but other mode of remote delivery as well. Students from Sabah not coming back. Students from Sarawak, of course, not coming back. At the moment, everybody not coming back. So you have to think. Then we need to plan, because we have to ensure this inclusivity, right? And of course, planning banyak level RP and coordinators head of studies as well. But lecturers will have to design and develop your scheme of work, your what we call your advanced organizer. Advanced organizer can be some form of a table or mind map for the students to understand the whole semester. Okay. So you got a few more days. I think you have been doing it as well to refine your course material and your delivery and to revisit the assessment. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Assuming all these courses are 3 hours, 3 credit hour, yeah. So let's say students taking 6, bukan 7 pun. So let's say we have all these things. If we don't do this, we cannot see the whole scenario. Course 1 giving ada lecture and discussion, ada reading, ada review, ada discussion. Course 2 also something like lecture, asynchronous, watch and discuss video, discussion forum. This is about in a week or so lah. So if we look at this, let's say you ask them to create, it would take 4 to 5 to 6 hours actually for students to work. So if you add up everything, I have not put in the self-study tau. You add up everything, you actually have more than 39 hours of tasks the activities that students will have to go through if they take 6 courses. You see? So think about it. And another one is assessment. Ni lagi lah, nanti Puan Nadia will talk more about this. We like to give a lot of assessment. We already asked lecturers to revise their assessment. So let's look at that. Quiz 1, test 1, quiz 2, industry case, test 2, 8 lab report, final assessment. Itu baru satu. Take another one. Ada problem set, ada test, ada quiz, ada term paper, ada video presentation, ada final assessment. That's another one. So can you imagine how the students are handling this, especially when they are away from you, from the campus? So it's good. Mohon sangat RP, not really RP, the lecturers teaching the same semester sit down together and look at the assessment blueprint and design properly, right? Okay. So if we want to do this at the course design, let me just reiterate. Kita balancekan the responsibility of the student and how much we guide. Tengok betul-betul the SLT, right? The duration, the pace, the environment, the dates and deadline. It's good if we can have all the lecturers teaching the same semester to sit down and look at all the deadlines. Then the students, you don't have all assignment from 6 courses due the same week macam tu. Something like that, right? So our instruction need to be clear, our lesson needs to be engaging, of course. This one, I hope, of course, Puan Nadia will pick it up. And we want to design learning experience rather than instruction. So this is our suggestion to you. Before you design anything, have some principle of design. Okay? So ODL, first kita formulate effective scheduling, instructional time and student learning time, SLT. Think about duration, think about time. Mentioned just now. Second, it doesn't mean it goes into by rank. Yeah? So we generate collaboration among students. So go for cooperation, collaboration, social learning. We call it co-opetition, bukan competition. Dia cooperate, dia compete tapi dia cooperate at the same time. Boleh tu. Go Google and find out what is co-opetition. But we have to facilitate and guide this. Jangan biarkan. Don't let them do it on their own. This is very important. Provide feedback and support. And of course, support through access to resources. Help them, kata affirmation of competence. They will ask you, betul tak ni Prof? Am I doing the right thing? Can you check this? That is very important to the student. Of course, you are good at emotional support, as we can see from the statement that the students wrote just now. Connection, very important. Stay connected. WhatsApp, very easy. Telegram, it doesn't have to be Google Meet and WebEx all the time. Build engagement. Ada interactivity. Like at the moment, when I'm talking to you, there is no interactivity. I'm just giving all this. It's a seminar. But you are not giving seminars when you are teaching, right? So you have to give this excitement, buat game, buat online treasure hunt on all these things, challenge them, use multiple media and so on. So this is the principle for that we think is good for ODL. Of course, this is very important. Equity. Some students, they are not able to connect to using WebEx all the time. Some can. And so you have to have some flexibility and choice. So with this 6 design, we go into the semester, inshallah. And we look at how we are doing things. And maybe we can add some more, right? So in terms of delivery, UITM ni kita ada basically 4 prevalent design. We notice lecturers are doing this. This is the basic one. Basic didactic, we call it. You go, lecture, you bagi content, student work on the task, and then you bagi feedback, right? Flipping, you give them before, right? And then you come in. So Mazwana, Miss Mazwani ke Mazwina tadi, she will know this. She's the e-learning coordinator. She knows about learning. Next, you have this what we call empowering the learners. You give them a very substantial project. You don't give them lecture. You may give them resources. They go find it, but you are around. You're around to help them, to guide them, right? And the fourth one, we call it active and interactive. So each time you give the content, but a lot of interactive session between you and the students rather than just one lecture. So when we look at what you have been doing, we try to calculate the SLT. So contohnya, when we have basic didactic, we think 1 hour synchronous is good, but if you spread over 4 to 5 hours of asynchronous, that's also good. But asynchronous, meaning not real time, and students complete tasks maybe 1 hour or so. So I'm going to leave this PowerPoint slide with you later, but you can look at some of the things that this is what we at the academic office try to figure out, the time that the some, not to say the best, but guided time in terms of the design that you're using. So flip, you can have students really doing something really substantial for 2 hours before coming into your discussion section, or students just do a simple introductory task, watch video, give some opinion, come to your session, and then do some discussion, and you have again tasks for them to complete, right? So this is interactive session. You have a lot of intermittent question lah. You use Kahoot lah, Socrative lah. But to do this, you need to be normally synchronized. So if you have a class of 20 students who basically can go online, then you should do this, right? So we call it power to learners. So they work on their own. You are there to give feedback. Peers also can give feedback. Then we also have this small group peer learning. You build or you assign the group. You have the content in the lecture, but they convene into their group or their learning communities to learn. But this one, you need to facilitate that group learning. Okay? So the most recent thing that we are trying to push is for mass lecture. So one lecturer present the content, but students attend tutorials with other lecturers as well. So they go into this tutorial or learning communities after a mass lecture. Lecturer facilitate learning. They finish the task in that tutorial session. So if we can do this, I'm not sure whether I am basically is doing this. You can actually save some of the lecture hours of your lecturers. And HCA is okay with this. But we know that faculties are saying, nanti KS nak kira macam mana. I think you have a way. We see many ways to do this. So if you can do this, it can be interesting because, see, you can have a mass lecture by one lecturer who's really good, right? Of course lah, kita mengaku among us, 5 of us teaching, 1 of us is good at this, another person is good at another topic. Okay, so after that mass lecture, students go into the smaller group. Or you can have a panel teaching kind of thing, 3 lecturers teaching, panel, and then they go into the smaller group. Or you can have a very high quality synchronous video combined with that smaller group. But this synchronous video can be a mass lecture kind of thing. Or you can have online mass lecture like this. After the mass lecture, we go into breakout session. Still online or face-to-face if you can do face-to-face lah, which at the moment no. Or you can have interactive mode. So we have been trying our best to figure out what are the things that you can do. So we had a lot of FAQ. I'm going to share with you one of the FAQ. Can a lecturer in one campus teachers group from a different campus? Yes. So let's say one of you is you're very good at one topic. I don't know how, I cannot mention, I cannot figure out one topic, but the people in Rembau or where else, I am in Kelantan, they feel that you are the best person to lecture. So have that mass lecture. There shouldn't be a problem. So you are known, for your expertise. You get to share your expertise. Students get the best um, how is it, expertise as well from the lecturer. They learn well. So this happened last semester in one of the faculty. This lecturer is known for her being very good at this particular course. So the students from the other group, not to say the lecturers are not good, but some lecturers are less experienced. So what the students did, they attended her class. The class was in the morning, but student bangun 8 pagi duduk depan laptop just to attend her class, and she had no problem with it. She's very open. So I would say she was probably among the few lecturers who basically did ODL, open and distance learning. She opened her session to the other students. Students love her. The students were not from her group who actually nominated her for the ODL award. That's very good. Okay? All right. So when you talk about design, sometimes people will ask lah, yeah, what kind of shall I say model? This is a very apa ni? What shall I say? Very common model for design. You analyze, you design, you develop, you implement, you evaluate. Right? So I have this video. I'm not going to play it, but it is online, and I'm going to share it with the organizer. We did this video um, early the semester of how RD was used to design your ODL. I think some of you may have watched this early, maybe in April or in March, right? So maybe I don't have much time, so I'm going to move to the next. Another model is I care. Why do I show another model? Because basically you can have your own model. The thing is, you always do the analysis first, right? And when you introduce to the learner or whatever content that you you give it to the student, you need the students to apply and reflect. This is part of the I would say maybe the next step after you design and develop. Okay, so one of the things that you must bring in when you design is multiple resources. Very important now, especially because students are really using this factor to help them study. So why do I put this man here? His name is Dr. Mark Walters, I think. He had this YouTube channel or whatever that he had to answer question for exam. The thing is, I chanced upon his because he was going live and students from all over the world were asking him question about some business courses. So it is possible that if you do this, students from over the world will also be asking you, but our students will probably go to him. This one is another one from our UITM lecturer, Nadia. She's very good at bringing in people from overseas into her class. So last semester she had Mr. Bartolome from I cannot remember where for her class, which is basically intercultural language or something like that. So these resources, being person or even content, is good. It also enhances the experience of the student. Students really they like this kind of thing because yalah for 14 weeks they are watching, like for me especially 14 minggu tengok my video is not something really interesting, right? So sometimes you bring in other resources as well. Okay, so basically remember the ways. We focus on the outcome. We must make sure students know where they are when they want to be. They are connecting to what they know and what they are learning, and they are participants who are active in the learning process, not only receiving what you are telling them, and they get feedback. Very important feedback. So with that, of course, this is very, the students have been saying this a lot. You are very motivating. Even your instruction, your lessons or your sessions are motivating. So we will say the design must be motivationally instructive. So I'm going to give you 5 design notes. I have about 20 minutes or so. 5 design note. Number 1, understand the dimensions involved in learning your course. So you understand. You have the learners, the learning environment, the learning content, the learning experience, the learning outcome. We used to do this only. Right? Kita tengok content je. Learning environment, kita pergi kelas. Right? And learners, yeah, tak apalah, we know them a bit. But now, we have to know this as a holistic thing. Then only it will work. Okay? Of course, now very clear outcome apa that you have to achieve. So, you can do this later. Always check your students' learning style because you will find sometimes a bulk of them are basically one learning style, like visual. So you tend to do more visual. Not to say you do all visual, no. Sometimes you have to do the auditory or tactile kind of thing because students are diverse. But it's good to know the portion who's visual, who's auditory or tactile. Or you can go into reflector, pragmatist and so on. Banyak instrument, computing into instrument. Okay. Then we need to know whether students are better with technology or lecture or skill based or inquiry based. Science student, they learn best through inquiry based. Whether they learn better through individual or group. So this is the student lah. We try to match. Okay, now students are more social. So maybe this is good. Right? But if you are doing math, you still need the drill and practice. Okay, we cannot be getting students to do video on calculus. But application of calculus boleh, but not on the real calculus. Yes, is that a question?
Jadi sekarang kalau nak cari tajuk masalah itu kita sebatas.
Okay, I think someone else is speaking kan.
Kadang-kadang kita gini, saya terdengar banyak sangat masalah sebab saya kita. Contoh kata ada proses penggunaan amal kan, jaga di saketi. Contoh. Itu pun kan kata apa?
Cik Zafian, are you speaking to me?
Satu dua. Kata ahli proses makmal, penggunaan makmal.
Okay. I think maybe some. Alright, never mind. Can I continue, organizer? Okay. Anyway, alright. Okay. Another one is to look at the outcome. This is the we only know this. Betul tak? We remember, understand. Ni cognitive. I'm not even talking about psychomotor and affective. But cognitive now, we've got dimension. We've got the knowledge dimension. So, basically, you want them to remember fact. You want them to understand fact. You want them to apply procedure. You want them to analyze the concept. See, the dimension is this. I like this picture actually. So you have to understand that it's okay, Cik Zafian, Dr. Zafian, tu tadi ya, on mic, it's okay. Apa ni? So you need to understand outcome mana ni yang you want to apa ni, push to the student. If it's just about listing, then I don't think you want to have some video bagai or term paper. No, it's not about listing fact. But maybe somewhere here, then you have to think about a better task or better activity. Okay, so outcome can not only be cognitive. Then you can be asking, can other outcome be supported? You know this well. But if it's not supposed, you are not supposed to assess. For example, you're not supposed to assess communication. In my class, I don't have to assess communication. So I do not have to ask them to do presentation every week. Tak perlu. I can just get them to do discussion and look. I watch that discussion or I facilitate the discussion to see how they deal with the concept. So be clear about what we want them to achieve. And of course, when it comes to the classroom, you need to now think when it's online, when it's on campus. Do they have all these things? Okay, learning content sama, learning resources maybe now more, but on campus lain, or interaction with instructor on campus different, online different, and so on. Okay, that's number one. We need to know all dimension. Number two, once we know the dimension, we are clear of the dimension, we need to provide a map. And the map has to be clear. I like this picture. You want them to drive on their own. Walaupun they want to drive on their own, they need a map. They need to know where they are going. They may singgah tepi jalan, beli jagung ke apa, tak apa. Tapi still they know where to go, right? Very important. That's you. So you need to design that learning. Now we come to the learning design. We need to put in the activities, the resources, the learning support, the assessment together into this framework to achieve the outcome. This is what I call, I like Oliver Herbert and Wills. Dari 2002 lagi I use their framework because I think it works, right? So the simplest way to translate this learning design is actually through your scheme of work. So remember, you want to give the map, you want to give the advanced organizer, and you want to put all these things together. We look at your scheme of work. This is mine. Maybe not the best lah, tapi it is something that I do every semester, which I always put in the topic, the subtopic, and I have the activities. So the students know what to do, and they have the link. They have the link to the article. They have the link to the YouTube, of course. And I ask them to make a list. For example, use Google Keep. So they need to know what is Google Keep, start their portfolio. And then here, all the resources possible, the tag, and if possible, put in the recommended time. Okay? Or you can have something like this, break it up. So I have one issues related to technology. I teach technology. That week I introduced the comic Pixton. Issue dia ialah about equity, connectivity dan sebagainya. So I ask them to reflect on their own, half an hour, submit reflection, then go through slide. This is more detail. This is during ODL. Discussion on WhatsApp, watch video on top 10 issue, go through the rest, post respond to issue because I gave them a lot of issues. And then they choose one issue. Because I introduce Pixton, they create a comic. So I pecah-pecahkan, I get their learning time. So I design that. Some may spend more time here, but actually they don't need a lot of time. Budak-budak ni pandai. Within minutes, they can create a comic strip, but they need to bring in the content from here, right? Okay, so this is what happened. Okay, so we had, this is the first part. This is the issues that they work on. Okay, and then this is the reflection. Okay, and this is basically the comic. Okay, tu tunjuk sikit saja. So basically, and I keep track of their what they do using Padlet lah. All of you dah pandai Padlet sekarang ni. So say ni this comic was made using Pixton. Okay. So that's number 2. Number 1, we know all the dimension. Number 2, we give a map. Number 3, now we have to think. It cannot be one way, one approach, one type, one tool. It has to be many form, many levels, and learning outcome can be achieved through various methods. So again, I use this picture. Suka picture ni. Kalau you tell yourself you are going somewhere and this is one road, this is another. How many of you will choose the road here? How many will choose this road here? I ask this question to many lecturers, young lecturers. Okay, the very structured people will follow this one. But even students like to follow this one. Because, tanya kenapa? One lecturer said, nampak redup. One lecturer said, because I see it as a challenge. Okay, so you are giving them option. So there are many types. Nak blend ke, nak flip ke, nak MOOC ke, nak use resource based ke, nak gamification ke, challenge based lah. inquiry based lah, problem based, project based. Sorry, jangan overwhelm ya. Community based lah, and many more. Only you will know what is best for your student. Okay, so let's say we take blended lah. So even blend itself, banyak cara. How do you blend? You can blend according to activities, you can blend according to topic, you can blend according to SLT. 3 hours only, berapa hours you blend. Berapa week you blend. Berapa, this one we go face to face. This one we go online. But this is basically when students are able to come back. But now you have to blend not only the mode, you can also blend the tool. What I'm showing you is blend the mode. Okay, so when we talk about blending the tool and the strategies, again, a whole range of this. So we can have all these things. Kita kena faham apa approach, apa method, apa strategi, apa teknik, apa tool. So kadang-kadang orang kata, I tak lecture, I buat video. Actually, the video that you did was also a lecture. It's the same approach. It's same method, lecture. Cuma you have a video lecture, someone else give a face-to-face lecture. So we need to understand that. So mass lecture, video lecture, and so on is same method. It's direct instruction. So what do we want? Kalau boleh, we want to go towards this side lah. The student-centered one rather than the direct one. But sometimes we need to have the direct one as well. Okay, so that's number 3. Number 4, after you have a lot of all those multiple tools, technical ways, method dan sebagainya, now you have to look at how you deliver and you assess. So, you got students. I have taught daripada diploma sampai ke masters. I dah ajar orang tua 56 tahun, I dah ajar cikgu, I dah ajar all those things. But they are all different actually. So sometimes delivery, kalau guru besar dulu, kalau saya ajar, kalau lecture, memang dia orang tidur within 20 minutes. Tak boleh. Right? Students now pun tak boleh. So we need to implement all the different approaches. And sometimes we have to be culturally inclusive. Especially other foreigners in your class. So I give you one example. I ask students to upload their research proposal, chapter 1 on Padlet. Everybody did except for a few of my international students from Afghanistan. So I asked why. They said no, they do not want to put dia punya hasil dia online because nanti orang lain akan ambil. You see, you tak boleh marah dia because they come from a country yang crisis. So dia jaga sangat dia punya harta dia, termasuk harta intelek. So be careful with getting them to collaborate and so on, to put things online and so on if you do that. So you have to understand lah, janganlah marah dia pula, but we ask them to share instead of going online. We ask them to share in class orally or through presentation. Okay, so collaborative, you need to support the learners and their roles, their learning experience and so on. Alright, okay, so this is another one again. This is another 2-day punya workshop actually, yang mana we now UiTM is going for, we call it Universal Design for Learning. So bermakna you have multiple means of representation, expression, banyak cara, you present information different way student express that they know dan sebagainya. So in this case, you can have flexible assignment option. Ini orang macam tak berapa nak setuju dengan saya, but boleh. Look at this. You have this is my course. The outcome is to demonstrate autonomous learning through reflective entries relating to the latest development. So dia nak demonstrate, dia tunjuk through blog, boleh. Dia buat portfolio, boleh. Dia nak buat produk, boleh. Dia nak buat a few things, compendium of things, boleh. Dia nak illustrate, boleh. Have you heard of sketchnoting? Do sketchnoting, boleh. So it shouldn't be a problem because the option is to demonstrate how they learn on their own through reflective entries relating to the latest development in innovative technology. So that is what we mean by multiple ways of expressing. Okay, last design note, design to engage and sustain. Basically, motivation. You do this well. I know you do this well. You create inclusive, respectful environment. You are the warm yang you exude. Budak cakap ni, you connect with them. You slowly, you transfer the responsibility to the learner. Ask them to do this. Jangan bagi dia every time the text or whatever. Ask them to go find and say, yes, you found the right one. Good for you. Share with the rest of the class. You give them choices and options. Remember budak sebut ni tadi, you bagi dia option and then you support active participation. You give them voice. Bagi dia orang bercakap. I always ask this with my student. Saya suruh dia orang undi or suggest to me when is the right time that I should give your test. So they among themselves will decide the time or the day itself. So then after that dia tak boleh cakap dekat saya. Dia cannot tell me and say, Prof, I have something else. No, you decided on that date, right? So we are going to go with that date. So they have to take responsibility for their decision. So of course, you nak kena elicit confidence lah. Confidence ni kadang just an ayat. You're doing well. Okay, very good. Reward competence. Reward ni, I did an online treasure hunt. I gave 50 ringgit to the first person who reached the who solve it lah. Itu pun dah bising lah satu for a few days dia yang bising. That 50 ringgit meant a lot to that girl, but the activities tu dia orang suka, right? So in a way you can think about that. So if you're not clear, if you're familiar with this, Keller said grab their attention in class. Make sure it's relevant. Again, build their confidence and they can be satisfied through your your assessment and so on. Right? This one, insyaAllah, Puan Nadia will do this for you. Assessment is not just about assessment of learning. We now have assessment as learning. It's assessment for learning as well. Okay. At the academic affair, we want to push for one more, which is this one. Tengok ni ya. Part yang create, connect and reflect. So if you can do this to motivate the student, at the same time instilling adab. They learn about technology. I connect them to some other person who's doing technology. So for example, let me just show this. Let me see the time. Am I on time? Okay, I still have a few more minutes. I designed the whole experience. The issue was technology issues. Week 5 was technology tools. Week 6 was formatting MS Word and developing a flipbook. So, I asked them to reflect tadi kan. So, they reflect, dia buat comic strip and then they work on issues using cartoon clip. And then they watch, if you heard of Masako Wakamiya. Masako Wakamiya ni dia 80 something year old. Dia boleh buat app. Now Apple pun dah ambil dia punya app ni. So, the students, I connect them to Masako and I ask them to write something on Masako using that MS Word that I taught them is with the advanced features as well. After that, they develop the flipbook on Masako individually. At the end of it, they develop a class flipbook using all the piston yang tadi tu, yang reflection and the cartoon tu. So everything is kind of connected. So they now they know. My students last semester, they know Masako, they know Mitra, the person who did the hole in the wall computer dekat India. They are connected to many other things outside of the class. So that is what we meant by connected, connecting, and also reflecting, and also creating. Of course, we have to do this first. They need to digest the content and synthesize. So the whole thing was done through this, insyaAllah. But I cannot be looking at just 1 week. I have to look at the whole 3 weeks in order for this to happen. Okay, so in terms of tools, you are better than me, insyaAllah. You got all the Padlet lah, apalah, tool for reflection, for feedback, for present. I use Flipgrid, budak suka yang tak berapa apa ni, bercakap dalam kelas pun boleh bercakap when we use Flipgrid. So in the end, there are many things that you can do. So when we say, kita reiterate balik, when we design learning, that map is very important. Okay, what is to happen, apa outcome to achieve, what are the tasks, and what are the support and the resources. We focus on our learner and what is the learning problem lah. Basically, apa point of difficulty for your course? What is the difficult part about your course? Don't worry about yang senang tu. Try to figure out. Don't worry meaning you teach, but then you need to concentrate on that learning problem and you seek solutions to solve that problem. Okay? So consider learning through different level, like I said just now, achieve through various methods. I like various methods. I don't use one method throughout the semester. Okay? You seek to engage or motivate. I have seen evidence that lecturers at IM are doing this. And of course, last of all, you need to inspire. Part yang paling susah lah. Tapi for now, we have seen many inspiring lecturers for the past 6 months. Dia orang kata terbukti, dia come out for the past 6 months. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alamin. So, okay, I think I'm on time. Learning is the only thing the mind never exhausts, never fears and never regret. I think lecturers pun need to think this way. Okay, tak penat kita belajar, kita tak takut belajar kerana kita tak pernah menyesal belajar. So with that, I thank you for listening to me for the past hour or so. All the best to you. Remember, we at CHIA, at the Office of Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic and International, we are here for you. You can email us, you can talk to us anytime. InsyaAllah. So, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, mic tak on. Yes. Okay.
I'm going to read some question here from our TDA actually. Dr. Rahman.
Dr. Rahman, you should be answering the question. Okay, go on.
Okay, the first one is how to minimize the number of assessment and at the same time will maximize student performance. Okay, so the second one, normally we don't give marks to formative assessment. Will it be okay to give marks or credit for formative assessment?
Okay, saya answer yang nombor 2 tapi assessment ni elok tanya Puan Nadia lah. But bila kita talk about assessment, dia ada banyak dimension lah. Formative, summative, lepas tu kita cakap final, continuous, lepas tu kita cakap graded and ungraded. Okay, actually formative boleh graded. You can have a formative graded. You can tell the student, you want to do this because you want to see, you want to make improvement for the student. Tapi at the same time, you can have it graded, but not too much lah ya, because summative tu yang sepatutnya measure what they want to achieve. Okay, how do I minimize? I am not sure about your course, but I think our problem is macam ni we've got 14 weeks of content. So we tend to, after 4 weeks, we tend to give one test. We test the topic. After another week, another 4 weeks, we tend to give another test. We assess the next 4 topic. And at the end of the semester, we give final assessment. Final assessment, we test all. Basically, you're testing only one thing. You're measuring the cognitive outcome. So actually final assessment tu, which cover the whole tu, dah basically measure that outcome. But we ada tendency bagi test. So I don't do that. We all only have one test. And one test at the end to measure cognitive punya ni. So basically I prefer to speak about my ni because I'm not very sure about all the others lah ya. Tapi what we do is we have one test and we test for both a lower level, basically some to recall, but also on the critical thinking level. They are both cognitive outcome. Satu test. So and then what else? Normally kita ada 4 outcome or 5 outcome at the most for our class, right? So we should just have 5 or 4 assessment je. So kita nak clear apa dia yang kita nak measure. But the rest, you want the students to practice the formative, the short quizzes. That one you can have it. That's okay. You want to have it graded, boleh. But you in our case, for example, if they produce something, I have them all graded sebenarnya because kesian budak, every week they work on something. But at the end, all this go into their portfolio and that is the main percentage of the assessment. The portfolio cover semua kebolehan dia untuk menilai dan membangunkan menggunakan teknologi terkini. Apa? Okay, Dr. Rahman, I'm not an expert on assessment actually. But I can speak through experience. Itu yang I'm doing. I hope I'm answering your question, Dr. Rahman. Am I?
I think you are, Prof.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. If you don't have any questions, we're going to have 2-3 minutes break to give Dr. Nadia some space to get ready. Thank you so much for taking your time today to conduct the talk about ODL. Rasa tak puas Prof? Kena 2-3 hari.
Rasa macam banyak sangat benda nak sampaikan. Jadi bila compare memang. But anyway, the slides I will give because I think we have someone from Unimap yang masuk ni. I think sharing the slide, kita ilmu tu bukan ilmu kita sebenarnya. Dia datang daripada Allah sebenarnya kan. So but I'm going to get rid of some of the data lah. Before then only I'll get it to I'll give it to the organizer. Boleh ya?
Boleh Prof.
Okay, thank you again for having me.
Okay.
I'll be for a while for Nadia. It's nice to see you online. Inshallah we'll have a great session next. Alright, thank you.
Alright. Okay, thank you, Prof. Alright, Dr. Nadia, Hanin, are you ready?
Yeah, let me just share my PowerPoint for a bit.
Okay, I'm giving you some time.
Sorry, you can see my slides, right?
Yes, I can.
And everyone can hear me clearly, right? Just to check.
Okay here.
All right, okay, awesome.
Okay, so without further ado, I would like to welcome our next guest speaker for today, Dr. Hanin Nazlan. She is a senior lecturer in Faculty of Hotel and Tourism Management. She is a hospitality educator and a behavioral scientist, and a little birdie have said to me that you are very powerful in analytics. Okay, so she have an outstanding achievement in both industry and academic. So the topic for today is your assessment appropriate for ODL? Okay, let's welcome Dr. Nadia. Over to you, Doctor.
All right, thank you so much, Puan. Firstly, I would like to thank Prof. Hajah because for the enlightening session. Actually, Prof. Hajah covered a lot and I feel saya berasa sangat kerdil lah kerana sesi saya ni selepas Prof. Hajah, someone with such a big name. Tapi tak apa.
No, don't say that.
No, really, Prof. I'm like, oh, wow. Okay, so my name is Dr. Nadia Hanin Nazlan. You can call me Nadia. Yes, as our moderator mentioned earlier, I am from the Faculty of Hotel and Tourism Management, UiTM Puncak Alam. And I'm also a team member under the collaborative group for alternative assessment and e-portfolio. We'll talk more about that later, okay? So today I'm just going to share with all of you about my own experience and this little bit that I know. I'm sure a lot of the IM educators over here all already know this, but let's just take this as a refresher course, okay? All right, so I'm going to talk about curating your ODL assessments. Oh, right. But before that, let's just recap about our education landscape. We always hear this VUCA. What is VUCA, and why is the higher education landscape is said to have a VUCA element? So VUCA itself is not something that's very new. It's not a new norm for the higher education, actually. VUCA is actually the acronym for volatility, U is for uncertainty, and C is for complexity, and 4 is for ambiguity. This does not only happen in the higher education landscape, actually. It also happens everywhere in other industry, in other businesses. Okay, so when VUCA happens, when the situation is very volatile, you can't predict what's going to happen next. For example, last few weeks we were all so excited to welcome our students back, right? I'm excited. I'm excited to see them again. But then suddenly we were jump scared by the number of COVID cases in the past few days. So, okay, here we go again. So everything is so uncertain, everything is so volatile and ambiguous. So the only thing that's constant here is change. All right. I would like to share with you this quote from Prof. Abdul Karim. Change is inevitable. So if you want to change the world, start by changing your classroom. Okay, because change is the only constant that we know right now. Who would have thought that UiTM or who would have thought that we would move online 100% just last semester? If you take a look at, I'm sure Prof. Azia has been advocating e-learning or ODL since years ago, and then came along Professor COVID-19, and then that made us, that forced us to change our method of delivery, right? Okay, let's talk a little bit about the ODL code of practice. So ODL is not something that's new. I'm sure everyone knows that. Even MQA, we already have the guideline for good practice back in 2013 or 2012, if I'm not mistaken. So among the ODL code of practice is flexibility. So I believe, like Prof. Azia mentioned, we have another expert. It's Puan Nadia. Puan Nadia is also an expert in ODL. So one of the code of practice is flexibility. So your program or your subject needs to be available, the availability of choices for educational endeavors, anytime, anywhere, and anyhow. So if you guys are familiar with Coursera, they also have an app that you can download on your smartphone so that you can learn from just your smartphone. You don't even need a laptop. So if we look back, this would not be possible. This would not be possible 10 years ago, right? But everything is possible now. Another code of practice is accessibility. So your program or your content should be made available to all. Inclusivity, okay? So freeing them from constraints of time and place. So nowadays people can learn from anywhere and at any time according to their own pace. We also, I believe all of you have also implemented this in your ODL, right? And then we have multiple modes. Like Professor mentioned earlier, she likes to use various methods, right? She doesn't only like to use lectures, she uses a lot of activities in her class, and that keeps the student entertained, that keeps the student motivated to pursue the class. All right. So let's look back at the traditional higher education institutions. In the traditional higher education institutions, we know that the learning can only happen if you are physically there. Okay, if you are physically there at the higher education institution, at the brick and mortar place, right? But now learning can occur anywhere. So as educators, I think we need to equip ourselves and we need to change a little bit of our our mindset so that we can keep with the changing times. Okay, so some of the key issues, there's a lot of issues in the ODL environment, but due to the time constraint, let's just talk about the two key issues. So one of it is the missing of the non-verbal cues. So for example, let me just let you know that I'm here while all of you guys are muted and I can't see your camera, I can't see your faces. So I'm missing this non-verbal cue. So I don't know which one of us is sleepy, which one of us is feeling really bored, which one of us is feeling like, what is she talking about? I'm just simply lost. So we're missing this non-verbal cues from our students when we conduct ODL, right? So how do we mitigate this? We can mitigate this by having or establishing a baseline assessment. So what you can do is to have a formative assessment, and this needs to be used as an early detection device for your classes, right? Again, another issue is the lack of community. If you guys notice that in the classroom, your students will have a sense of camaraderie, okay? Because they know that in the classroom, they have their classmates and they will feel like, hey, we are in this together. But in the ODL setting, they would feel very anxious because they would think that, oh, I'm doing this all alone, okay? They don't have their classmates right beside them. So lack of community, how do we mitigate this in our ODL environment? So we can use asynchronous collaboration. I mean, like if you have access or if your students have access to synchronous meetings, you can always ask them to collaborate synchronously. But if they can't do that due to the limitations of internet or connectivity and whatnot, you can always do an asynchronous collaboration and use asynchronous collaboration tools. Even we have the forum or the discussion board in our UFuture and in Island. For those of you who are using Google Classroom, you can also use Google Classroom to have discussion. And I believe a lot of the lecturers here or educators here, we're using other channels such as Telegram, such as WhatsApp, and to encourage collaboration between students, okay? So again, we have formative approaches to assessment that can encourage a sense of community. All right, why is assessment important in ODL? Well, assessment of student learning is one of the key aspects of quality assurance. When we talk about quality assurance, we will link it with MQA, right? And it is one of the most important measures to show achievement of the learning outcomes. That's the most important thing that you need to remember. Like Prof. Hajah mentioned earlier, like you need to map your learning, you need to map your, so that the students will know that at the end of the day, their destination is the learning outcome. That's what we want out of them. Okay, so under MQA's COPA guideline, assessment of student learning is under area 2, where we should look into the relationship between assessment and LO. This is very important because your assessment must be correctly mapped to the correct LO or learning outcomes, right? And then the assessment methods used, whether it's suitable to the learning outcomes that was intended to be measured, and then the management of students' assessments. I used to teach in the United States, and we also have this policy called FERPA, the Family Rights and Privacy Act, where even if the parents contact us and ask us about their students' performance, we can't reveal it to them. So it is guided by FERPA. Okay, so we really consider students' privacy as a very important thing, right? Okay, when should we assess our student? We should assess what the learners know before. So if you want to know what the learners already know before the beginning of your class, we would use diagnostic assessment, and then we should also assess what the learners know during our class or during our sessions, and also after our learning exercises. So there you have diagnostic assessments, we also have the formative assessment and the summative assessment. Actually, there's other types of assessments, but we don't really have the time here, and that can be saved for next series of webinar. Okay, so let's take a look at the assessment types. I'm sure all of you have seen Prof. Azia's slide just now. You saw assessment for learning, assessment as learning, and assessment of learning. So what do we do in assessment for learning? So we assess what the students already know, their prior knowledge, or whether they have any misconceptions. Ada tak yang salah konsep? Ada tak yang masih tak faham daripada subjek-subjek yang lepas? So diagnostic assessment can be used here just before you start your semester. I'm sure all of you have already been doing it because we have our entry survey, right? But you can also have a pre-test for your student just to gauge their understanding. So, kenapa kita perlu tahu apa yang student tahu sebelum start kelas kita? Sebab kita perlu constantly change and constantly design our assessment or our teaching method to suit apa yang student tak tahu in order to bring them to the destination. Kan tadi kita kena map student punya journey, and we have to guide them to bring them to the final destination, which is our learning outcome. Okay, and that is in assessment for learning. Assessment as learning is when you assess the student's performance or the student's achievement as you go along, or you assess what the students understand from your lecture as you go along throughout the semester. This is what we call, or what we use, this is when we use formative assessments. Okay, we can also use diagnostic assessment over here. We can also use formative assessment, and this is what we call as assessment as learning. So you can see over here, it focuses on the constructive feedback from the teacher. So in formative assessment, feedback is very important. Feedback serves as a nudge. Like if you see the student is going a little bit off track, you have to pull them back to be on track again, right? And then we have our favorite, a lot of the lecturers' favorite, the summative assessment. All of us have our final exams and tests, and this is where summative assessment comes in. So summative assessment actually serves as a snapshot. Why do I call it a snapshot? Because say, for example, you have a midterm test. When you have a midterm test, which is typically proctored in week 7 or week 8, right? So your summative assessment actually provides a snapshot of the student's achievement or the student's proficiency from the starting of the semester, from week 1 and up to week 7. All right. So that is assessment for learning. Again, if you have your final assessment, that's going to provide a snapshot. Say, for example, your final assessment only covers the chapter that you have taught after midterm until before your final exam. So your final assessment is going to cover, or is going to provide, a snapshot of the student's learning or student's proficiency from after midterm exam right before your final exams. Okay, that's for assessment of learning. Okay, so let's talk more about the formative and summative assessment. So when do we use our formative assessment? So please remember that I'm sure all of you already know, but let's just recap. Okay, so formative assessment is used to help improve the student. Okay, and summative assessment is used to help to prove what the student have learned. So it helps the student to learn and practice for formative assessment. So when do we do it? When do we provide this formative assessment? It's throughout the course, because students will constantly need our feedback, right? Why do we do it? Because we want to identify if there's any gaps, and so that we can improve our students' learning. So when I talk about gap, what is the gap that I'm talking about? It's the learning gap. So what is a learning gap? So learning gap is actually the gap between what the students already know, or what the students know, and what they need to know, what they should know in order for us to achieve, at the end of the day, the learning outcome. So if there's any gap, we as facilitator of student learning, okay, as facilitators of students learning, we need to nudge them back so that they can be on the track to success. All right. So how do we conduct formative assessment? Through several approaches. I'm sure all of you are doing that in your class right now. You ask questions, you ask them to have a group discussions, and at the end of every lecture, you would ask them, okay, so what do we learn today? So that they can recap what they have learned on that particular day. So those can be considered as formative assessments as well. As for summative assessment, we assess students' performance. So when do we do it? Typically at the end of a unit or an instructional period. Why do we do it? We want to collect evidence of students' knowledge, skills, and proficiency. And how do we do it? Via exit learning outcomes, such as your final assessment, your final examinations, your final report or final presentation, etc. So saya nak beri contoh yang lebih mudah untuk kita semua ingat. Saya beri contoh untuk undergraduate project ataupun undergraduate research. So we know that at the end of the day, the outcome of our undergraduate project is a student innovation project or a thesis or undergraduate thesis, right? An undergraduate research paper. All right. So the formative part here is when the students come to you and show you their proposal, and then you would give them feedback saying that, okay, your problem statement is not as strong. Probably you can improve on your research objectives, or you can improve on your hypothesis. Those are not graded, right? We provide them feedback, but these feedback are not graded. So it's a process. And at the end of the process, what we want to see and what we will assess and what is weighted is the end product itself. And that is summative assessment. So here are some examples for the formative assessment. You can use your in-class discussions, questions during your synchronous sessions. Actually, I wanted to connect Mentimeter to my sharing session today, but I don't think I would have the time to do that. I have a video quiz and short reflection assignments, peer review, homework assignments, and surveys. Okay, for those of you who actually curate your own videos, right? I use Camtasia. If you use Camtasia, you can actually embed quiz questions inside your videos, on your videos. Okay, so you might want to check it out. It's called Camtasia. And then for summative assessment, we have instructor-created exam. Everyone is so familiar with this. The standardized tests, the final projects, the final essays, your final presentations, reports, as well as your final grades, right? Okay. Again, this is very important. Your assessment must be mapped to the correct LO. For example, if you want to measure, if your CLO is for you to measure students' communication skills, then it would be inappropriate for us to map it to a final exam. That's the clearest example that I can give you. Okay, so typically, if you want to measure a student's cognitive achievement or cognitive ability, then that's going to be mapped to your test or your essay or your critical article review and whatnot. But if it's because in our faculty, right, we tend to assess a lot on students' skills, student psychomotor, because we have practical classes, we have kitchen, we have dining room service, so that needs to be mapped to the assessment needs to be mapped to the correct LO. If I want to, kalau sekiranya saya ingin menghasilkan seorang chef yang terkenal, it's just simply not appropriate for me to focus more on the cognitive part, right? I need to focus more on on his or her psychomotor, right? Okay. So as 21st century educators, we facilitate learners' exploration of knowledge. Yes. Nowadays, kita sendiri tak nak spoon feed our students, but sometimes students want to be spoon fed. Okay, tapi as 21st century educators, we need to facilitate learners' own exploration of knowledge. So they are their own nakoda, okay, exploration of knowledge. But we still have the responsibility to nudge them towards the correct learning goals that we have already assigned at the very beginning. Okay, so here are some of the ways to create a meaningful assessment. First, you need to create an assessment journey altogether. You need to let the students know this is what's going to happen. This is their journey. Okay, like Prof. Azia mentioned earlier, map your design, map your design. So for assessments, you also need to create your assessment journey. So this is to gear learners towards the goal. You can think of your learners or your students as an e-learning athlete. And at the end of the line is the big event, the main event. So the main event is your summative assessment. Okay. So this formative assessment will nudge them, will train them. It serves as a coach, will coach them and prepare them for the main event, which is the summative assessment, which is the marathon. I'd like to call it a marathon because it's assessment journey, right? So students go on a marathon, but before they start the final marathon or the final lap at the summative assessment itself, a lot of formative assessment and feedback must be given to them. Okay, so the next one is to provide feedback. Don't skim on your feedback. Students love, especially the younger generation and the new generation, they love to receive feedback. And the thing with them is that they would want their feedback immediately. And that's what sometimes it's hard for us to do because we have a lot of other classes and we also have a lot of students. And a good practice is to give feedback that is tailored to the learners themselves. For example, if you are teaching classes that involves a lot of writing, then definitely students' writing style is going to be different, right? This student probably will need more help on his or her grammar, and another student would probably need more help on their writing style. Another student would probably need more help in formatting and whatnot. So as your feedback needs to be specific to the learners. It can be general according to context, but somehow what helps is that when you provide feedback that is tailored to them so that they know what's wrong, they know what they did wrong, di mana silapnya, di mana kurangnya, so that they can improve. Okay, they can improve and perform in their summative assessment. You also need to promote quality, integrity, and challenge. Students get so bored if your questions or your assignments are not challenging. Okay, for example, if you have multiple choice questions, sometimes we would have an answer that's a dead giveaway. So, and this is not challenging for the students. Okay, we also need to consider about that. And then another important thing is to cater to all learning styles. Okay, this is very important because we have a group, our learners are very diverse. They learn differently. Even you and me, we have a different learning style, right? So we need to think about our learners and how and what's best to help them succeed. Okay, I believe everyone has already been doing this. We need to clarify our expectations up front. Okay, so we need to provide our students with our rubric, what is expected of them, with the model answer, not model answers, with the models or criterias or requirements that we want from them. So always remember that your rubric is not, it's not a private or document. Okay, it needs to be shared with the learners so that they know what is expected of them. So this can also reduce learners' anxiety. When we started with ODL, a lot of the students they went on Twitter, right? They went on Twitter, they went on Facebook confessions, and they said, "Wow, ODL is very stressful. I'm very anxious. I have anxiety disorder." So we can help our students and reduce their anxiety by providing or clarifying our expectations upfront. From my own experience, I do have a student who was diagnosed with clinical depression, and but he needs more help, and so we have separate sessions after class or at night so that I can assure him that I am here for him. I'm going to guide him and I'm going to make sure that he's going to finish the program. Right? Okay, I believe a lot of you have already seen this before. So you know that your assessment needs to be valid, reliable, as well as fair, right? So for a fair selection, everybody has to take the same exam. Please climb that tree. Okay, please climb that tree. There's also a quote that I remember. Everyone is a genius, but if you judge a fish's ability to climb a tree, then it would spend its entire life believing that it's stupid. So we can't provide, if learners learn differently, then we can't assess them using the same using the same assessment tool. Okay, so let's talk more about that. So because we know learners are very different, right? I believe a lot of you already know the left brain and right brain thinking. So, and this is another interesting take to it. The Herman whole brain theory, which segregates the brain into four separate quadrants. So as you can see in quadrant A, in the blue, it's all about facts. Okay, it's all about facts. People learn differently. Probably some of us would leaning towards quadrant C or quadrant D or quadrant B. Okay, so in quadrant A, this is all about facts, and this is the segment of the brain or the quadrant of the brain that loves facts, and you can take it like a data center of vast neurological network that churns and process data that is given to it. Okay, so this is the part of the brain that's responsible for your logical thinking, analytical thinking, fact-based, as well as quantitative-based. And then we move along to the second quadrant, which is quadrant B. This is more on practical thinking. So quadrant B is about organizing thoughts and ideas and turning them into meaningful information. Okay, so this is the part of the brains that plans the task. Okay, so it sequences and organizes information based on facts. Okay, kita nampak ada love tu, that is quadrant C. I think you can expect the people in quadrant C, they are very touchy-feely, right? So this part of the brain, it revolves more about feelings. Okay, these learners, they learn best when emotions is injected into the learning materials. So this is the emotional processing center of the brains. It creates necessary neurons and receptors for feelings-based kinesthetic responses. It helps us to have the sense of empathy. It moves us when we see a moving film or something that's very sad. So for those yang tengok drama petang-petang tu kan, apa Bidadari Kiriman Tuhan tu kan. So if you feel very sad for Mira Filza, so you know that this part of the brain is responsible for that. Okay, so and then we have the last quadrant, which is the yellow quadrant. It's more about experimental thinking. So this is the part of the brain that tackles with intuition, and creativity and synthesizing. So if we want to relate it to our Bloom's taxonomy, right? Synthesize, one of the highest level is synthesize and create, right? And this is the part of the brain that's responsible for it. Okay, so saya tak nak semua confused pasal whole brain theory ni. Nanti kita ingat macam, oh, you experimental, you analytical. Bukan. If you guys remember about the ICGPA spider web, so the whole brain theory, if you take its survey or instrument kan, kalau kita ambil instrument ataupun survey tu, the whole brain theory ni nanti dia akan map kita punya tendency of thinking macam spider web tu. Maksudnya kita memang ada all four quadrants, right? But kita akan ada kecenderungan terhadap sesuatu quadrant yang lain. Macam saya adalah quadrant B sebab before even from your own experience lah, if you want to plan a trip or a holiday with your family, right? There must be one person that's very detailed, that needs to have the itinerary, that needs to have the hotel booked like a month ago before the actual trip, right? And then you have another person or your spouse who's like, oh, we're going tomorrow. Oh, okay, let me just pack my stuff the morning before. Okay, so those are the kind of people yang tak apa, dia tak perlu plan, dia tak perlu ada layout plan yang ni. So this also explains why in class sometimes kan, bila you explain a thing, you would have students yang macam, they will always get you whatever you're trying to say. But you will also have students yang, I don't understand, madam, I don't understand. Okay, let me just rephrase that for you. Madam, I still don't understand. Okay, it's because they think differently from us. So this is the whole brain continuum, okay? Think about how you can be more effective in your design. So this is what we need to do. We need to consider, because we need to include everyone. We need to understand that our learners is very different. Think about how you can be more effective with your design and delivery with those learners who do not fit your style. Okay, sometimes we are very quantitative, so we want them to also be quantitative, but that it doesn't work that way. We all have different kinds of smart. This is from my own experience. My own lecturer. She's super smart. She's really smart. She's a researcher, but she does have issue with her social skills. So actually, she's socially awkward. So kalau if you guys are familiar with Big Bang Theory, that's a great example I can give you. Big Bang Theory, Sheldon Cooper, he's an astrophysicist. He's uber smart, but he's very socially awkward. He doesn't have any emotional intelligence, right? So there's multiple kinds of smart, okay? And the smart depends on the continuum. So we need to consider that before designing our assessment or designing our delivery, okay? So let's take a look at the whole brain instructional strategies. So here are the list of activities that you can use in your class that taps multiple areas of the brain. Okay, I don't think I have the time to do so, but what you can do here is that consider which one of these activities or which of the activities that you never used in your classes before. Okay, probably we can include or we can inject a new kind of activities in our class next semester. So you can see that the theorists or those who are inclined towards quadrant A, they love research findings, they love textbook, they love reading. I'm sure we don't have a lot of these students nowadays. Okay, and those who are inclined in the quadrant B, they love problem solving, they love steps. If you ask them to develop an SOP, they would love it. Okay, and then we have those in quadrant C. They like group discussions. They like social activities. They like to be talking. They like to present. And then we have the innovators in quadrant D, who are creators. Essentially, they love anything that revolves around creativity. They like to brainstorm. They also like mind map and synthesize. All right. Okay, so these are the e-learning activities that you can use for you to be able to map or for you to be able to tap the 4 different quadrants of the brain. As we can see, interestingly, simulations taps every quadrant of the brain. So probably we can consider having a simulations in class. It does not need to be online simulation. It can also be, let me just share with you later on what I do for my strategic management class, okay? And then you have case studies, you also have videos and brainstorming over here, you have role play, you have online community, you also have quizzes over here. So you can go back and look at this and consider this when designing your assessment later on. Okay, if we talk about the OBE and how it relates or how it's associated with the whole brain approach, we can see that if we are mapping at our if we're mapping our LO to critical thinking, that taps all 4 parts of the brain. Okay, for critical thinking, for problem solving. But if we focus more on communication or socializing or teamwork, right? Teamwork is it's tapping more on the quadrant C. So we can consider all this when designing our CAP later on. Okay, here's a checklist for you. So if you have activities that's for quadrant A, you have activities for quadrant B, C, and D, you can use this checklist and see whether it actually really helps those who are inclined in that quadrant. Okay. Just to share, like Professor mentioned earlier, because I don't use only a single method in my class as well. And because our learners are very diverse, I also have diverse or various learning activities for them. Let me just share with you my Padlet. I'm sure all of you are using Padlet right now. or probably Padlet is so over it. It's so yesterday. Let me just share. Okay, so you're seeing my Padlet right now, right? You can see my Padlet, right? Anyone? Oh, okay, awesome. Thank you, Prof. Okay, so I teach research methods. I teach research methods from 2 to 5. One semester I had to teach research method from 2 to 5. So that's like the peak hour for students to be sleepy, right? Research methods is very dry. It's a very dry subject. And students are like, what is this? What is this? I totally don't understand this. So what I do was I asked them to develop an infographic after every topic. So this actually helps them. This is formative assessment. I'm also surprised at the responses that I got, but it's not graded. But the students diligently do it because every week I would give a little gift or a little prize for the best infographic for the topic. Okay, so they can study on their own while creating the infographic, right? And they can also have a better digital skills. So for those students who never heard about Canva before, they suddenly know Canva. They suddenly know how to navigate Canva and other free apps that's available online. Other than that, we also work on the serious stuff, on the summative stuff, on the serious stuff such as the TF and hypothesis. But for the type chapters or the topics in research methods, they had to do an infographic. Okay, so okay, other than infographic, I also have formative quizzes. Okay, I also have formative quizzes. I like to use quizzes instead of Kahoot. There's a reason why I'll share with you later on. These are not graded, but yes, students feel very excited to complete this because quizzes, I find the interface to be more student friendly, and it seemed to be, it can appear as a game, as a small game for them. So they are always excited for the quizzes. All right. So let's go back to the PowerPoint. Okay. So I also have a holistic group project. I'm sure some of you may wonder, what is a holistic group project? A group project is a group project. Well, in this group project, the students are required to do to role play. They are assigned to be board of directors for organizations that I specify earlier. Okay, they need to do their own research about that organization, and they need to come up with a proposal on how to salvage a dying organization. So this is for my strategic management class. So at the end of the day, when they do the presentation, they really feel like as if they are responsible for their own proposal, because they feel like as if they are the board of directors themselves. So the way they talk, so I would ask them to talk to at the end of the class, I would ask them to present to the CEO. So the CEO is the instructor, is me lah, but they will present it really well. So I've always had fun with this group project. But there's a lot of a formative element in my group project as well, because they have a weekly checkpoint with me. So they need to come to me every week and show their progress. So it's a lot of work. I know it's a lot of work, but every week before they submit the final report, they have to come to me, and I will let them know what's missing, what's not enough, what can be improved. Okay, so this feedback goes on and on every week. I also have a critical analysis paper. I know how do we tap those who are inclined in quadrant C. They're very emotion, right? Okay, so we can have a stem for our question, for our instructions, right? We can provide them with a situation. For example, we provide them with the statistics of COVID-19's death. We provide them with the statistics of hotels being closed because of the COVID-19, and the what about the tourism industry? Tourism industry is heavily impacted. People are losing jobs. So when you talk at their emotion, they would feel interested. Okay. Okay, so this is how I have fun with my formative. I've shown you earlier. This is my quizzes. In quizzes, you can set your own meme, and a lot of our younger generations today, they love this meme, right? This internet memes. I create my own memes for correct answers as well as for wrong answers. So when they see Azwan Ali over here, they get like really excited and giggle away. Okay. So you can check quizzes if you don't use it. I know a lot of people use Kahoot, but I find quizzes really interesting as well. Okay, and then we have the seriously summative. This is for my quantitative analysis class, a quantitative analysis class. We have a midterm test, and my midterm test I conducted on Google Form via Google Classroom. I'm a Google Classroom user. Okay, so how do we design assessment instructions? There's 5 pillars of designing assessment instruction. First is to think about the situation at hand, and then the task given, what are the actions and activity expected from the students, and then we have to take a look at the students' results. So why do we need to take a look at the students' result? Is for learning analytics. Okay, and then rubric as well as reflection. I'm just going to show you my lesson plan. It's not the best, but just to show an example. So let's take a look at the context. So in week 2, I want the students to know the process of strategic management. Okay, so they need to explain the 4 processes of strategic management and identify the strategies suitable for organization at different stages of organizational growth. So let's take a look at the instructional activities. So in situation, I would provide a situation so that they can have a brief idea of what's going on in the world, what's going on in the real industry, right? Organizations go through different stages of growth. Different stages of growth require different strategy to ensure firm sustainability. All right, so what are the tasks that the students need to do? Students need to be able to explain the 4 strategic management processes and suggest suitable strategies according to different stages of organizational growth. And action and activity is mentioned here. You can be more detailed over here. It can be more specific. Use Lucidchart to map and explain the process flow of strategic management. I like to use Lucidchart, and I want my students to learn how to use Lucidchart. They can then upload the process flow map on Google Classroom, and then they can recommend specific strategy according to different scenarios given in the Google Classroom via Google Meet. So at the same time, I can also tap their communication skills. And then as for assessment, like I mentioned earlier, this is for learning analytics. So you can analyze the results, your students' results, and identify the learning gaps, whether if there's any learning gaps. And you can also look at so probably you have a multiple choice questions and the students, 100% of the students get a number 3 wrong. So there must be something wrong with the question itself, right? So we can take a look back at our question and probably reword it or probably change the question. So that's why learning analytics is very important. It's for a continuous quality improvement process, your CQI. Okay, using learning analytics, steps in formative and summative assessment. So the first step here is to set your learning goals. Okay, so this is your LO. And then this is the lectures or provide information to the students, which comprises of the knowledge, skills, and attitude that you want them to have. And then provide some examples, models, criteria. And this is going to be your rubric. And then the students will demonstrate. Okay, after demonstration, you collect the data from the students, analyze this data, and then you provide feedback to the students. And then the students will revise, and then probably based on your feedback, they will bridge the gap that was there earlier on. Okay, and then they submit their summative project. Again, you go over and collect the data, analyze the data, again, provide feedback, and then students will receive the data in the forms of grade. So if you can see, number 1 until 8 is more towards formative, and number 9 until 14, it's more on summative. So here are some of the Web 2.0 assessment tools that you can use. I believe a lot of you have already know this because like Prof. Azia mentioned earlier, a lot of the IM lecturers, they are very well equipped with ODL. So probably there are one or two that you've never heard before and you can try it. Okay. So before I end my session, I'd just like to end you with this quote here. Technology cannot make a poorly designed assessment better. It just scales a poorly designed assessment to more people. And before I end, I'd like to share a little bit about our CIDL, which is the Center for Innovative Delivery and Learning Development. So the center is actually governed by the HEA, UIDM. Let me just open up the website for the center. So this is our CIDL. Okay, so you can see that there's a lot of collaborative group under CIDL. Particularly, I would like to highlight the alternative assessment and e-portfolio group. If you'd like to know more detail about assessment and e-portfolio, then definitely you can contact us over here. It's headed by Prof. Nadia, TS Dr. Shamsul Noor Azlan. And then we have our team members over here, and you can contact us if you feel like it. All right. So I think with that, I end my sharing session. Thank you very much.
Yeah, good to have you here. It is a very fruitful insights from your point of view. There are two questions, I think. One is from Adib Zakwan, Mr. Adib Zakwan. He said that betul, but some RP really don't want to give the student the rubric. I don't know why and how to overcome it. Any solution? Okay, so the next one is from our Dr. Mazlina. Where is it? Okay, Dr. Nadia, can formative assessment be mapped to a particular LO?
Okay. I think I tackled the question about the map to formative assessment map being mapped to a particular LO. I believe earlier on, Prof. Azia had already also talked a little bit about this, right? It can, but if we look at it, it's not supposed to, because we don't want the students to be overwhelmed by so many summative assessment that is weighted. So when the students know that this assessment is weighted, they would feel bogged down. Instead of trying to learn, trying to acquire the knowledge, they would feel like, okay, I need to complete this, I need to complete this. Oh, okay, just do whatever it is, what it is. Then they would just submit. So what we want to focus on is the learning itself and what the student will achieve at the end of the subject. As for the other question about the rubric, I know, I understand, but probably some of the RPs, they don't have their own rubric. I think we do have a bengkel on rubric development, I believe, in ILD, right? Yeah. Mungkin boleh juga KPP ataupun TDA, kita paksa semua RP kena pergi. Bengkel ni kan sekarang bengkel dah boleh buat online. Sebab buat rubrik ni mudah je, ada app dia pun. Saya tak ingat app, saya tak masukkan kat dalam ni sekarang.
Alright. Alright, okay. So I think that's the end of it. Okay, before we end our session today, I would like to invite our Dean, our Professor Dr. Suhaimi Zakaria, to give a launching ceremony speech before we end this session. Prof?
Thank you,
Belum
Mazwani Ayu. I just want to check whether you can hear me or not.
Yes, we can, Prof.
Of academic and also Dr. Nadia, who have both given, they have shared their personal experience and have immersive process. Our end of stage. As imagine a teacher who has to manually adjust his or her teaching style to suit each style, and that will be a nightmare actually. But through the advancements of technology, we can now address all these individual differences in learning. So happy that to learn about the in the survey that they have conducted, which shows that we have achieved quite good results, which means that we are not too far behind in terms of delivering through the ODL what we have done in the first round of ODL. But of course, we know there are a lot of rooms for improvement. We will continue to strive to improve our performance. I hope all my colleagues from the faculty at Puncak Perdana and also from those from the branches and also from colleagues throughout UiTM who have invested their time this morning to tune in to this conversation. Hopefully, we all have benefited from this session. We hope to go through our second session of ODL. Of course, we went through the first one as a very a good learning exercise. We have completed one full cycle of ODL, and then we are now going through to the second cycle. Hopefully, for the second cycle, we are in full cognizance of what learning entails for the students to help them achieve learning in the true sense. That is deep learning. So this is what we need to achieve. We have been made aware of the importance of the components to make sure that ODL works, not only ODL as a means to deliver our lecture, but it involves making sure that students learning and achieve at the end of the session learning a deep learning situation. That is what we hope to do. So with that, again, I would like to thank both Prof. Hajah and Dr. Nadia for their wonderful sharing with us throughout this session, and also to Puan Azwani Ayu for moderating the session, and also for my team at FBM who have worked with high dedication and tirelessly to make sure that this session is successful. So with that, thank you very much, and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Prof, can you take 1 minute to take picture? Can ah? Can ah? Okay, everybody, can you on your camera and put a big smile so that we can take a picture? All right, ready? All right, big smile, everybody. 1, 2, 3. Okay, one more. 1, 2, 3. Okay, hati-hati memandu, Prof. Thank you so much for your time. Squeezing
Thank
in
you.
while driving. I hope you are using hands-free.
Yes, inshallah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Prof. All right.
Thank you for
Thank you all
audience.
for your participation and challenging feedbacks and everything that have been taught and shared. I hope everybody gain a little bit or not more for us to prepare for our coming ODL. Okay, to end the session, let's recite our suratul as and tasbih kifarah.